Hello everyone and welcome to a Vampire the Masquerade lore dive into Clan Tzimisce. With Bloodlines 2 being released, I wanted to talk about the clans within the world of darkness. I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts and opinions, and of course if I miss anything, feel free to comment down below. Fiends, dragons, the old clan of Tzimisce are the most inhuman and sadistic of the clans, and gladly wear this as a badge of honor, as they usually seek to transcend beyond human limitations in their vampiric state. Though they may appear cordial, polite, and intelligent, although perhaps inquisitive, and hold themselves in high regard, a longer glance will have you peer past this coating to something truly monstrous underneath. The Tzimisce disciplines are animalism, a power granting them communication or dominance over creatures of nature. Dominate, power that forces the will of a vampire on a victim, and Protean, a power allowing a vampire to change form. In older editions, the Tzimisce had vicissitude instead of Protean, but vicissitude has now become an amalgam power of Protean and Dominate, and was most likely turned into this to simplify and cut down some disciplines like previous others we mentioned in past videos. With these disciplines, however, the Tzimisce can be quite formidable, using a mix of Dominate and the amalgam power of vicissitude, still allowing them to use their own flesh as a weapon, along with others that cross them, and animalism allowing them to use beasts to patrol their territory. The Tzimisce antediluvian is only referred to as the eldest, though the Tzimisce claim to be descendants of Enoch, the first progeny of Cain, though there are conflicting stories about the origin of their antediluvian. The legend of Irad has it that Irad the Strong sought to purge himself of all evil, and using his mastery of Protean, he gathered all his evil into a bilious mass of repugnancy and horror, and spat it out. The mass would then be consumed by a mortal and be destroyed, but to Irad's surprise, this mortal appeared normal, and thus this mortal would be brought to his brother Enoch to be embraced. Another story goes that Enosh, the lawgiver, embraced a man, and thus the Tzimisce antediluvian was born, but not by whom they presume according to the texts in the Library of the Forgotten. Overall, though, this antediluvian became more than a usual vampire, and instead of having a beast inside them and their humanity, it seemed they just had two beasts. The Tzimisce clan bane is that of being grounded, and it requires them to keep a specific charge, that of their physical domain. A group of people, organization, or something even more specific, but it must be something limited and defined, and once they sleep, they must be surrounded by this charge. This used to mean that they had to slumber in the soil of their land, but it can now mean so much more. Alternatively, within the tabletop, they can choose the Bane Cursed Courtesy, which means, much like the classic vampire tale, if they wish to enter a place of residence, they must be invited. If uninvited, they must exert their will over their bestial side to overcome this. The Tzimisce clan compulsion is that of covetousness, and when under the compulsion, they become obsessed with possessing something in the immediate area, adding it to their hoard of possessions they have over the years. This possession can be property, an object, or even a person. Those who are embraced by the Tzimisce are generally those who pique their interest, as most Tzimisce see mortals as overall irrelevant. They look for specific characteristics for the smallest flicker of potential in their future unlife. These embraces are extremely selfish and based on specific interests of the soon-to-be sire rather than the distinctive characteristics of the child. Whatever these interests may be, the child must be a master of this in life, and can range from anything from academics of science, medicine, to even something more morbid like serial murder. To a Tzimisce, they don't mind. As a whole though, Tzimisce are known to be choosy, as mentioned before, for their lack of interests in mortals and even disdain. Due to this, Tzimisce have partially addressed this problem by instituting breeding programs among mortals, resulting in ghoul families. In the early annals of history, the eldest traveled to Eastern Europe, where it and the clan became tied to the land and Kupala, the demon beneath Transylvania. Kupala instruction of the eldest culminated in an event known as Kupala's Night. Before the Great Flood and long before the rise of Rome, those of the clan gathered in the depths of the Carpathian Mountains. Though the werewolves attempted to keep the demon imprisoned, they ultimately failed as Kupala was set free. With the demon freed, its only outlet was into the clan, which enhanced their powers of vicissitude and their sorcerous magics heightened to that of gods. This is known as Kupala's Night, and this is when Clan Tzimisce established their power but damned themselves for eternity. Since then, they have waged a private war with the werewolf tribes of Eastern Europe, and though a single werewolf is easily a match for an elder vampire, the Tzimisce have the aid of Kaldunic sorcery and their flesh-crafted ghouls known as Vosht. They drove off the werewolves. The Tzimisce had little to do with Rome and its many conquests and expansion. The real influence they had lay further eastward in Constantinople, where they furthered the knowledge of the clan. As time marched ever forward, the Tzimisce Voivodate, a loose confederation of Tzimisce domains in Eastern Europe, was about to face new threats. One such threat was the emergence of the Tremere. Though the Magi of the Order of Hermes were a familiar presence in the region, they soon evoked the wrath of the vampires around them, and though they had many enemies, they managed to survive the Omen War with the Tzimisce. The Omen War continued until the Anarch Revolt rendered the Tzimisce incapable of any real organized efforts as a clan. Despite the warlocks of Clan Tremere's continued survival, Clan Tzimisce continued to hold this grudge against them throughout the years, though many younger members of the clan failed to comprehend why. During the Anarch Revolt, however, a member of the clan, Lugoj the Bloodbreaker, would diablerize Bylebog the White, and later in 1413 lead an attack on the eldest's haven, to which Lugoj had prevailed, as the eldest was nowhere to be found. Lugoj had left the haven behind him, though more details on that later in the video. As the Victorian Age progressed, the more significant thing for Clan Tzimisce was the publishing of Bram Stoker's Dracula, a particularly famous vampire novel which detailed a member of Clan Tzimisce, that of Vlad the Impaler. However, in the Victorian Age was when Clan Tzimisce began to notice its decline. Once proud and aristocratic, the modernizing of the world turned them into a joke of times long past. With mortal beings being able to travel much easier, meant that Tzimisce couldn't maintain being lords or rulers of their own fiefdoms, as news would travel fast of their monstrosities. Science began peeling back the curtain of folklore and superstition that the Tzimisce had built their reputation on. A true double-edged sword, as the peasants over which most of them had ruled over began to rise up against them, but the advancements in medicine allowed for leaps and bounds on the mutable forms, and their knowledge of the body expanded. Moving on through the modern nights, the Tzimisce are still on decline, ever since the Anarch Revolt. Lambach Ruthven, the unwilling sire of Dracula, finds himself wandering throughout Sabbat territory, but in his wanderings, has discovered something horrible beneath New York City in the sewers. The horrifying truth of his antediluvian's existence. Lugoj did not destroy the eldest. No, it was Lugoj who perished, and the eldest simply used flesh crafting to become a copy of Lugoj, faking his own diablerie in the process, as to fool the anarchs. Though now, through advanced mastery of vicissitude, has become a gigantic mile-long pseudo-fungal infestation under the tri-state area. The consciousness spreads through thousands of creatures and can form bodies at will, offering Lambach metamorphosis, a chance to be as it is, as part of what it is. Thus Lambach fled like any sane vampire would and tried to tell anyone who would listen, but the truth fell on deaf ears. The Tzimisce who remain in the political scene remain attached to the Sabbat, but many younger Tzimisce have moved to the Anarch movement, as they are disenfranchised whose ambitions cannot find purchase in other areas of vampiric society, moving beyond the old ways. Clan Tzimisce was built on hospitality, which feels like a mockery as they peel back their mortal frames for more extravagant shapes and engage in acts that would be unspeakable, of rituals, tortures, and many fiendish activities as they find new ways to cause pain. A clan of rules and traditions, though some things fall out of style and seem lost like Khaldunic sorcery, while their elegance and attachment to the rules of hospitality and treatment of guests act almost like laws as newer generations seem to break away from these things. I'd be curious to hear what interests you in the Tzimisce and some of the characters in books, the original bloodlines, or even the tabletop. Is it their mastery of vicissitude and the lesser used Khaldunic sorcery, the master over flesh or land? Or the fact that they could be seen as the classical vampire, that of Dracula, an ancient feeling clan that has seemingly stopped progressing in the weave of time? Personally, I haven't had the pleasure to play one myself, but I do find myself interested in them the more that I read up on them. The power they have of vicissitude is a very interesting one to be used in the tabletop setting, and feels like it could be flexible, it could be used as a Swiss Army knife of possibilities. That is all that I have for now, but in the meantime, let me know your thoughts, as I'd love to hear them. Let me know if I missed any details, and don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed, and subscribe to stay up to date on future videos. Some being Let's Plays, some being these lore, theory, and discussion videos that will be posted at least once a week. Don't be afraid to let me know some of the other subjects you'd be interested in either, and hopefully, I see you all in the next video. See you then.